Will, here's a good one. Should I build multiple startups at once? It's a great question for a serial entrepreneur founder such as yourself.
Uh-huh.
But should I build multiple startups at once?
I tried this, right? I tested this theory as hard as you could test this theory. So when I'm responding here, we can give you the benefit of the fact that, Ed, you and I talk to thousands of founders. So it's not just our own bias, which I'm going to give you some of, but it's also watching countless other founders do it. We get to live their lives. So we've seen so many founders make the multiple bets. And here's the thesis, right? And this was mine, so I get it.
Okay.
The thesis is this, that I've got a few ideas. And if I really want to hedge my bets, I'll do a few different startups and then I'll just work on which one works. That's the thesis. And it makes sense because it feels like this hedge theory. What it overlooks entirely, lesson learned here, a decade of me doing this, okay, is that startups don't win by putting less effort into them and spreading your focus. That's like actually the polar opposite of how they work. Here's what I did. Let me give you a quick example. In the 90s, I started one of the first interactive agencies in 1994, a company called Blue Diesel. We merged that, we grew that into about a $700 million company and sold it, right? Awesome. Why did that work? Because I focused on one thing. That's exactly why. I have no questions about why it worked. Now, after that, after we sold it, I then said, hey, you know, it'd be much smarter. Let me start 5 or 6 companies. Right? Portfolio. Let me hedge my bets.
Yep.
And so I did that. So for the next 10 years, I built a whole bunch of internet companies. I had a million ideas. I could fund them myself because I had a little bit of cash. And I also raised money for some of them. And they did okay, not great. And when I look back at it, I looked at it and said, what a giant waste of time.
Oh, no.
Right? And this is so funny because I've mentioned this to him before, but I always use Dharmesh Shah, who's the co-founder of HubSpot. You know, it's like a $26 billion company now. Dharmesh and I were running roughly the same concept businesses at roughly the same time. This is long before he did HubSpot. And I remember talking to him and saying, hey, I'm going to start a bunch of businesses. And he's like, yeah, I'm just doing this one thing called HubSpot. Right. And I had no idea what it was. It seemed like a stupid idea. Right. What do I know? And so I use this because it was such a great parallel. It was like what my life could have been if I just focused on something versus doing a bunch of startups. And so the timer starts. Dharmesh does HubSpot. He raises money from Sequoia. Did an incredible job. Just couldn't have done better, right? In that same time, I start 5 companies. Now, to be fair, one of those companies became Startups.com, which I'm incredibly proud of, right? 3 of them I venture funded, you know, with some great partners. And when I look back, when I look back at this, call it like 7 to 10 years, and I was like, whoa, Dharmesh is a billionaire. Right now, granted, it's not that simple, right?
Sure.
It's not that simple.
Yeah.
But the whole time I'm watching like the both of our career trajectories go, and we're roughly the same age, right? And I was like, dude, if I had just focused on one thing, I'm not saying it would have been HubSpot, but I'm saying it would have been so much better because here's what happened. I ended up focused in splitting my time, splitting my focus, splitting my energy on 5 different companies that just did okay. Dharmesh put all of his time and energy into one company and crushed it. I should have done that. And that's what I did with startups, and I'll never do it again.
There's nothing wrong with exploring multiple ideas. I do it all the time. Like, truth be told, I'm always exploring ideas. But should they become startups? Nah, that's not a usual thing. But, Will, I think that founders get into that fear and they want to hedge their bets. What if this fails? But they don't realize that you're actually increasing the odds of failure if you start hedging those bets. You might as well just invalidate one as fast as possible. That's what we're advocating for.
Yeah, and look, again, the idea is, hey, it's like going to the casino and playing blackjack. I'll play 5 hands and watch and see how each of them go. That analogy doesn't hold up whatsoever. Okay? Because the difference between cards being dealt in a matter of luck and actually putting in the effort to make something work isn't even remotely close. So if I put all my energy into one thing, I have a very small percentage chance that that's going to work. If I want to really screw myself, split that time and energy and focus across 2 things or 3 things, and the probability of me making any of them work goes down exponentially. It's not a lateral bet.
Okay, I like the way that you did it. Let's do the math. So 90% of startups fail. So you have a 10% chance successful. Now you do 5 startups at the same time. Now you got 2% chance. Really, it can be calculated that way.
It's even worse because essentially if 90% fail, 90% fail when founders give 100% of their effort.
True. So
right?
True.
That's the part that folks miss. When I started splitting my time across multiple startups, at first it started to work, right? One of the first companies I was launching was a company called Swapalease.com. Online, it's still around today. I have nothing to do with it, but it allowed you to buy and sell car leases online. And we got that to about $3 million of revenue on about $1 million of net in like 18 months. Now, that's a lot of money.
That's nice.
Right? It's amazing. Woo. right? And so then about a year and a half later, I launched another version of what's essentially now Startups.com. And we got that to $3 million on a $1 million net in about 18 months, almost the exact same time period. So my thinking at the time, this is early 2000s, is, well, if one of them's great, two of them's better, then 10 of them would be much better, right? Like, why stop there? And that's where everything went to shit. Because essentially what happened is I had two mouths to feed, two kids to take care of with those two properties. And then I went to start a third, thinking it's just cumulative, just more money. It's not. The moment you start that next thing, you bifurcate your focus however you do, it's at the expense of the other two. And I have watched countless founders make this bet. Countless founders get it wrong. And the problem is they're able to make it work at first. And so they all think it's the right signal. It's the long term that never works.
Okay, let's just be straightforward to all the founders out there. If you want to build multiple startups at once and you want to fund them and you want to roll that dice, because it literally is, that's like you're gambling, go for it. You can do whatever you want. We're not stopping you. If you want to optimize your chances of success, this is what we're saying. Will, the question then is, what should the founder do? So I come to you and I say, Will, I've got like 5 ideas and I don't know which one to work on. And I'm thinking about doing them all at once, but show me the better way. What should that founder do?
I think you should first understand the calculus. It works like this. 100% of your energy and focus is your best opportunity to make anything work. And so take any idea, and its probability of working is directly proportionate to the founder's focus, right? Their energy, their output. The moment you split your focus, you are exponentially reducing the probability that either of those ideas will ever have worked. That's the part you need to consider. Now, you want to do 3, you are once again exponentially reducing the probability of any of those working. Our calculus that I did wrong is, well, every startup has a chance of succeeding, and my devotion or focus is just incidental to that. Your devotion and focus is the only reason that thing is going to work. So the moment you take away from that, you are absolutely firing holes in the boat. So what you're actually doing is saying you might have 3 good ideas, but if you want to guarantee 3 failures, split your time among them.
Ooh, yeah. And we have founders come all the time. I say during their onboarding in their advisory session, all right, so pitch me what you're doing. Well, I'm working on, 3 things at once. And it's like, oh no. And then we run them through an exercise. We do things such as, okay, which idea do you have the best fit for? You can solve the problem. Founder market fit. Which one's the best market? But I'll ask questions like, which startup do you see solving that problem for the next 10 years? Like, you're never going to lose energy. So there are ways that we help the founders get to that decision point and work through and rank and sort things out so they have the best chance that they feel good about making that decision of where they put their energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had investors in my deals, like when I was running multiple companies, come to me and say, wait, why are you talking about other companies? I was like, well, wouldn't you want to know that I'm capable of doing multiple things, like a pre-Elon, like before the Elon days? And they're like, are you out of your mind? Right. And I thought that, like, for some reason, I had no basis for this, that investors would love to know that I was able to handle multiple companies. What a Bo Jackson hitter, right? They were like, no, they were like, we want all of your focus on one deal for just this reason. The last thing we want to hear about is that your head is anywhere else. That's the worst thing we could hear.
If I am remembering correctly, memory serves me, Bo Jackson got injured in one sport and completely couldn't play the other sport. And that's his legacy. It just didn't extend. And I think that's very important. Investors need to know that as an investor. So investors can invest in multiple startups because we bring on teams. We have to have a CEO, a team dedicated to that startup, or else I'm not going to write that check. But if the founders start splitting, maybe if you're, what's his face, Twitter, right? And then you go and you do Square or whatever, the next thing that he did.
Yeah, but that's totally different. Wait, but hold on, but those guys have massive amounts of infrastructure below them.
Exactly.
You're just one dude in a room, right, with a Starbucks, right?
Exactly. So
none of this infrastructure.
So the investor's going to be thinking to myself, gosh, where is my money going? Like, is it going to a startup that I invested in that I actually have equity in, or B, C, D, and E startups? That's a scary proposition for an investor.
100%. Look, at the end of the day, it makes no sense to split your focus. There's no version where you're splitting your bets. Now, if you want to make multiple successive bets, you work on something for 6 to 12 months and find out it just wasn't working for you and move to the next, sure. I would still make an argument that any idea needs a certain amount of time before you could really make that call. But even still, sequential bets, sure. If you're going to make multiple bets at the same time, ends poorly almost every single time.